Hello, and welcome again to Scioto Trail State Forest. Today I'd like to introduce you to eastern white pine. Eastern white pine is a native pine to Ohio, but it wasn't widespread originally. It was really found in the eastern and northeastern part of the state. But now it's pretty widespread throughout the state in landscapes and in plantations, in fairly large tracts occasionally, like what we've got here. But like I mentioned, eastern white pine is a pine. It's a conifer, it's a cone bearer, but like other pines, it has its needles in bundles or bunches. These needles, when we break them off or if we pick them off the ground, we're going to find them in groupings of 5. They're very fine needles, very thin needles, and then they'll be connected together in these groupings. And that's very common for pines. The needles of white pine tend to be around 3 inches. I think the keys will say 3 to 5, but you'll see them somewhat shorter, rarely 5 inches in length, but again in bundles or bunches of 5. They're kind of a bluish green color with little white lines that kind of give them that blue tinge. Every year in the fall, about this time, I get phone calls and folks say, gosh, my pines aren't looking good. The needles are turning yellow. What happens every year with pines, they're going to lose some needles. Needles get old and fall off. The ones at the tip are the new needles that were produced this spring, but with white pine, the needles further back on the twig are from last year. And in the fall, they're going to hit the ground, and the pines are only going to go through the winter with this year's needles. And next spring, new needles will come out and they'll go through the growing season with 2 years worth of needles. Again, these needles will turn yellow and fall off, and you'll find them on the ground. So even if you're in a plantation, you've got a big white pine above you, you're going to find needles on the ground, and they're still going to have those bundles or bunches. So you can count. And white pine, eastern white pine, is really the only fairly common tree at all that has 5 needles. You'll also notice they have cones. These cones can be up to 6 or 8 inches in length. They're very elongated, and they're very sticky or resinous. Another good indicator of white pine, you'll see some distinct whorls of branches. Each year, white pine will form a new whorl of branches. They've got a bud with a terminal bud with buds surrounding it. And when that terminal bud grows up, those buds around it will grow into a whorl of branches. Down low to the ground, it's going to be hard to see those branch whorls, but you can actually see knots. And then when you get up to where the branches are hanging on, you can start counting those whorls of branches to get an age of the tree. White pine is not a great self-pruner, so even in a dense woods, you're going to see dead branches hanging on, and therefore the wood that's produced from white pine tends to be very knotty. They call it knotty pine. So again, white pine is a native to Ohio. It's pretty commonly planted. A lot of times in really dense plantations, we're going to see an insect problem called pine bark adelgid that makes the bark look very white. If you're seeing that, you probably got too dense of a white pine stand. And now we're seeing another problem with white pine needle decline that's becoming widespread, caused by a number of factors that we're still trying to get a handle on it, but we believe environmental condition and mainly a number of fungi are contributing to that problem. White pine's a beautiful tree, and in its native range, it can grow very tall, and oftentimes in a mixed stand of pine and hardwood, the white pines will emerge and grow well above the hardwood canopies, making them historically very valuable, and part of the reason England was so interested in North America for the big tall white pines to be able to produce ship masts. So again, this is eastern white pine, Pinus strobus. And don't forget to at least spend part of your day in the woods.